Hey, Dr. Lu, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for asking.
Well, thank you for being here. I know you're taking a big trip soon. I can't wait to hear about it. But I know you really wanted to talk because something's been on your heart, and you had a big trip. You went to China, and you came back, and you have all this insight from seeing the world, being with patients. So, specifically, what you have seen post-pandemic, how people are more divided than ever. And not only is the toxins you always talk about making people sick, but this loneliness, or what do you want to call it, is dividing people, and it's also making us sick.
Yes, Jason, thank you for bringing that up. I am sure everybody know I just turned 60. So, by the time you're 60, you kind of develop something about what has not been working, what has been working, particularly before and post pandemic, or even during the pandemic. What I have seen is the environmental toxins and stress have really created a very dysfunctional modern society because we started to become polarized between, right and wrong, the very super conservative safety seeking security versus the nature of human being, which is love, creation, and certain risk, right? We tend to honor one or the other. Like, particularly during the pandemic, we want to seek the security and the safety, and therefore we create this separation of mind and people, because people continuously, become either very fearful or extremely risk-taking, right? So I see this as humanity, we have these two parts of us we need to honor. And to be in between is a place that you honor the space that you just simply don't know, where you're simply in between the stages, which I feel the more we honor that and respect that, the less argument and polarization we're going to have. For example, two best friends, post-pandemic, they don't even talk to each other because they have certain disagreement, and they forgot the part of human nature is love, creation, creating something good, and then have certain safety, right? And we also forgot at certain stage of people's life, they may be drawn to different parts, right? So because in my community, we're more holistic, integrative, we are addressing more environmental toxins and stress from that perspective to look at health. But also we have to honor those hospital doctors are saving people's lives. Many of them are also very stressed out and concerned. So some people may be in between. We have physicians are, giving up on one paradigm, moving to the other, but they may be very confused in the middle as well. If we can embrace that in between spaces, we will be able to actually not only just coexist, but start to love each other, because we have those two sides of us in everyone. So that's really the part I want to bring up, this non-sustainability of arguing, creating fear, and creating enemy. We have enough challenge in our life. We don't really need any more disintegration and polarization. So I want to bring everybody together at the heart level and talk about what is being human is like. Being human is really controversial sometimes, right? So, and that's okay, because everyone have the two sides. So back to you, Jason.
Yeah, thank you. That, it seems like before, I don't know, social media, before 2014, maybe, like you didn't have to agree with your neighbor. They could be Christian, they could be different religion, and not everybody cared so much of like, did you vote for this person? And did you take this medical intervention or not? And now it feels like you said, like even amongst doctors, right? You have the holistic versus and everybody has an enemy. It's like we're walking around with so much enemies.
Yes.
So what is going on? Like, what is that? You think it's social media and just the media that caused this? And how do we fix it?
That is so true. Jason, you know, I have been living here for a long time, since 1988. And what I saw, I totally agree with you. You know, I really cannot name on one particular event, but I definitely notice certain things have really made a huge push into this polarization. And one of them, I'm not particularly political. I'm really for environmental health and global well-being. And but of course, you know, pre-pandemic is this argument about, you know, the presidential election. I think that's really the started of the social media influence. And I think social media is money driven. I don't think they are particularly political. But what I learned from a really beautiful practitioner is she was asking for certain things that's leaning towards more holistic. And suddenly she's getting a lot of email or advertising related to what she was concerned to the extreme, right? She just fell into some kind of track, which is designed by AI, not by a particular person. And I did too. I was looking at a gut issue, and suddenly, you know, I got all these advertisements, and one of them is called "Make America Poop Again." That was
that's awesome.
so. And then, of course, I thought my friends are seeing the same thing, but then I talked to my friend; they're seeing something about man's erectile dysfunction. You know, it's like, you don't look at those things. No. So I think that polarization really started from our searching habit, and it could be accidental. We just categorize in that group. I think that really contribute to some of the polarization, because we just make assumption our friends are seeing the same thing. Okay.
That's right.
And we all have to realize that. And that is not a conspiracy. It is just the AI's way to control our mind so they can sell us the things we're looking at, right? But unfortunately, the pandemic happened. That phenomena, so the polarization started to become out of control. And of course, the government is trying to control the crisis. And I grew up in communist China, so I know the government function is to control people. And otherwise, you can't run the government, right? That's really, I try not to be demonize anything. I try to say, okay, this is the way it is, the government. And it's for control and power. And you really, you know, there's nothing we can do really much about it. But what we can do, though, is to unify people. You know, I always ask people, do you know we all live on this tiny little planet? We're all being polluted. There's no organic land. I saw a super wealthy lady. She has an organic chef. She has a eat organic food. Everything's filter, air. She still end up with ovarian cancer. And it turns out she was poisoned by glyphosate that was sprayed in her area. And by the gardener who all the wealthy people hire, and many of them use Roundup. So there's no organic land because they also pollute the water by fracking and all the stuff. The fracking produces lots of heavy metal, and the heavy metal gets into the organic vegetables. Right. So even the vegans that eat organic vegetables can be still poisoned. You see? So I try to bring back to the place that, yes, we all live on this planet, no matter how capitalist you are or how socialist you are, we all are poisoned. We all need to deal with environmental toxicity. And that is one unit point I really bring up people's attention to be together. The other thing is really about honoring the unknown. And that is actually make us grow as a human being. And why do we want to grow? Because we are happy. We want to be happier. Sometimes we become narrow-minded. The narrow-mindedness actually causes judgment, and the judgment never make anyone happy. I can tell you that for a fact. You don't want to be the judgmental person. You don't want to be the judge all day long, because eventually you lose all your friends. Eventually you lose anyone you love, because people can sense that judgment. You need to like let go that need to judge the black and white and embrace where the gray zone is, and be able to say, I'm mature enough to say, look, nobody know yet. We're just going to wait, or maybe I'll study more, but I'm not going to form an opinion, and that opinion become my choice to use to judge others. Right. I think that's the worst thing you can do when we're facing so much changes today.
Yeah, you know, I love what you're talking about. Your journey with environmental toxins has led you now to these emotional toxins, right? It's kind of like a psychological or Buddhist, Buddha called them poisons. But it's so true. If we're going to solve this problem of the glyphosate, we need to act. If we're fighting with our neighbors about every little thing, we're never going to get together and make changes. Meanwhile, I'm sure your neighbors would love to know that there's safe alternatives to glyphosate. But because we're all fighting, nobody trusts anybody. So I see what you're saying, that we really need to heal these emotional toxins. So how are we going to start doing it? Like, I know, you know, like you mentioned like, oh, you got some, oh, you can read the poem. Great. Yeah.
Yes.
So
yes. Okay, I would like to share with everyone this poem I love. And it's by David White. He's a Irish poet, and he talked about this just beyond yourself initiative. I call it initiative. It is called Just Beyond Yourself, if I can share the poem. It is where you need to be. Half a step into self-forgetting, and the rest restored by what you will meet. There is a road always beckoning. When you see the two sides of it closing together at that far horizon, and deep in the foundations of your own heart at exactly the same time. That's how you know it is where you have to go. That is how you know it is a road you have to follow. That's how you know you have to go. That's how you know. It is just beyond yourself, and it is where you need to be. So that's where I love this poem, because we don't like to go beyond ourselves, because it's lack of safety and certainty. But we also limit our life experience if we are only limit ourselves to this one side, you see? And right now we're having this huge awakening about personal relationships, lovers, husband and wives, girlfriends and boyfriends, you know. Why is that? Because some of us really want security and certainty, but we forgot that part of uncertain, the creative part. If you want to create something, you have to let go the certainty, right? And it's that creative, the beautiful adventure, the heartfelt experience. You know, you're taking something extra risky, or even a little bit of beyond yourself, right? There's the excitement, and that challenge this certainty and safety. But if you move yourself into it a little bit more, you'll be just so awakened to the opportunity of life is more. Life is not just being afraid and hiding, or, you know, stop talking to your friends, because there may be a chance you'll hear something new that you just don't really know, you know? So I think I think it's a great state for us to reach together. Now it's post-pandemic, 3 years. The first question I want people to ask, if you continue the same conversation and argument, is that making you happier? Making you feel your heart is being set free? And honoring that question. It's like, whatever I'm doing in the past 3 years, is this working for me? Is it working for my heart? Is this making me reaching out to my old friends I miss so much, but we had a big argument over some stupid things like vaccines, right? It is
Right.
time to get over that. Because what's really important, do your friend get vaccinated, or you grow up together and you witness each other's growing and your relationship challenges, your love of your children, your new life, are you really that adamant about, that you are the right person, right? So I just encourage people to say, I had enough of this. I need to reach out to my friends who I miss so much. And it's ridiculous for me to not to even talk to her because of this issue. So I just invite everyone to do that and see if we can make a beautiful time of closure to things that's not working and opening up the opportunity to go into the gray zone. And so then we can hold hands each other and reaching to the end of the road where love is rediscovered, honored, and we can take this life as adventure together.
That's beautiful. Like people, you mentioned the word demonize, and what came to mind was angelize, right? So we're talking about angels and demons. So we find one thing we don't like about a person. This is how our society's become. And then we focus on that one thing we disagree with. Meanwhile, a human being is so complex and they have so many experiences that you didn't have. And I'm also kind of guilty of, before the pandemic, social media started, Netflix, then the pandemic, I started to get into like, oh, I want to be with this group of people and these people are crazy. And then I broke out of that and I just started interacting with all types of people and not even talking about politics. I couldn't believe going to parties and no politics, no vaccine talk. And it was so great because every person's a new connection. They have someone to connect you to. So like you're absolutely right. If you just don't focus on the 1%, or because we all want the same thing. We talked about this the other day. Everybody wants a safe place to live. They want clean food. They don't want to be sick. We all want the same thing, whether you're vaccine or not vaccine. It's just that we have different logic. Everybody thinks they're right. Everybody thinks they're being logical. In science, you can't both be right. There is but we could agree to disagree, and we could focus on all the benefits we get from people, regardless of what they look like. So, okay, so my question is, because it's easy to say this, I think most people will agree, but then when they hear something they disagree with, how do they, and they have a physiological reaction, like they actually have different cortisol and everything. How do they break free from this? Because they probably do. I mean, I see it in my own family. Like people do want to reach out to each other. They do love each other, but they won't do it because they're like, why should I? I'm right. They hurt me. How do you get over that and be the more compassionate person and start to, because I know personally, even if I think I'm right about something, if I reach out and just kind of move on, people usually appreciate it. But do you have what do people do like to just not be so affected by that? And
that is really big challenge. So Jason, I want to share with you some of the suggestions. This family relationship counselor, her name is Esther Perel. She talk about certain things we do can unite people. And she recommend dancing.
Oh,
and
yeah.
she said, and you mentioned about dancing, a couple of my friends talk about it, said, when you are lonely and sad, you really can't dance, because dance is music, is movement. And when you start dancing, you automatically become happier. So that's her recommended activity, which I think you are doing. Meanwhile, I also, for me, our group, we have a group, and they are all bicyclists. And when they get together to bike together, nobody care about the vaccines. We don't even talk about it,
Right.
We just be careful with each other, but we do things together. So, if there's some kind of physical things that you do that you feel bring your happiness, bring your love, Another thing I love is to go hiking in the forest. Now, some people like to hike alone, which is okay, but I think it's better to hike with your friends because you actually got this phenomena called forest friendship. Nature connects you together because nature, it does not discriminate, right? The trees doesn't know if you're Democrat or Republican or the Green Party, right? So I think nature has a special way to connect you. I also do think food is a place to connect people as well. And that goes to, how do you feel about the food? And I think the way I watch you make food is you actually touch the food. And the plant-based food is generosity, is love, is giving. For me, I see that. I want people to go out. Right now, it's apple season, blackberry season in Mount Shasta. When you go out and just take from nature in a way, and then you feed your soul, and it's just like nature is so generous, so generous. And we need to get that generosity and being nourished feeling from nature. And of course, I am a totally plant-based because I learned when your food is 100% nourishing without somebody have to die or suffer, it just gives you extra benefit. And the more those kind of food you eat, the happier you're going to be. So again, that's definitely something I would not change back unless I'm starving and like the link of the days. So anyway, that goes back to food and movement together.
It's so true. Like, again, I completely witnessed this in myself. Like when you switch to the plant-based, like you just feel more compassionate. You feel like you're friends with the animals more, and the community is amazing. Like everybody. And so, yeah, I wish, it's hard to explain, but not just the health benefits, but, it's just, yeah, the foods. And you mentioned going into the forest. Like, yeah, as a kid, that's what we used to do. We would just go in the forest and like run around, and like, that's what we used to, it's so true. Like to go together, like what do you want to do? Oh, we get a group together, we go in the woods. And
yes.
So everybody's feeling isolated now, right? So I guess we have to be, everyone listening, I guess, if you're listening to this, it means you care. So I think, not to feel like we're better than other people because we're plant-based, but at the same time, like if you're listening and you feel compassion, just be the bigger person, right? Like, and just if there's one person, just try to heal, I guess, with one person, and because that will ripple out, like that will affect other people. There'll be, love is like the ultimate nourishment. Like it just feeds you and then others. Like when you're hateful, you're harming someone else and you're harming yourself. When you're loving, even when the person doesn't deserve your love, you're nourishing them and you're nourishing yourself by being loving. And it makes sense that, if you look at it from evolutionary point of view, we would be wired, because we're social beings, we would be wired to have benefits from being generous, from being compassionate. It's beautiful that's the way it is.
Now, Jason, I think one way to overcome the fear of rejection or ridicule or things like that is when you pick up the phone, always talk to the soul of that person. Okay. Now I know that sounds really kind of too new agey, but if you truly believe we're all coming from the same source of light, our life is the light shine on the prism. The prism just have different color, but the source is the same. So if you see the source and honor that person from that stage, I think it's a really much easier way, because the person who talk back or being nasty or hateful, those people are really not realizing their source is the same as energy, as love, as adventurous human being to give, we're giving a gift to experience life. I think that could be something we can start practicing. Let's say I talk to my mom who has had an argument with me, And I always tell her every time she bring up this plant-based thing, because she gets really upset about I don't eat meat. So when I talk to her, as soon as she gets all agitated, I would just say, Mom, I love you.
Mm.
You don't have to do anything you don't want. Just follow your heart. And I love you. You're so beautiful and you're so cute. And then I just deviate this because I was talking to her soul. Do you see?
Yes.
But anyway, I think that could be something we can try.
That's great. I think that's like the advice I was trying to ask for, and that's perfect. You're right. Like, just everybody inside is like a child, right? That was hurt. And then they create this story and they're trying to be right. And when you say something, even if you don't even do anything, you're like, oh, I just eat this way. The way you eat offends them because, like, I'm your mother, and
yes.
and maybe they somewhere inside they're like they probably know they should be doing something different. So you kind of make them feel guilty, and you're not trying to. So I love that idea of talking to the soul. That's really I think what we need to do. Yeah, and I think that's really. So you have the child who's suffering, but then you have this soul, which is equal, where all the souls are equal. We all have the same human nature, and every one of us has something to teach everyone else. Everyone has something unique. So I think that's amazing advice. I think that should be one of your pillars, is talk to the soul.
Yes, talk to the soul.
I really love that. I really love that. So, I know you mentioned, and don't take things personal, right? Like I think that's how you do it, right? The 4 Agreements. I know we both love that book, if someone is saying something mean to you, if you could just tell yourself, it's not me, it's like they're hurt because they wouldn't be talking to me this way about something so silly like what you're eating unless they were hurt somewhere. So if you understand that, it does really change. And like you said, you deviate the conversation, you pivot, and that really does work. Because I noticed I used to have a hard time, like, you know me, right? Someone says something and I'm like, well, what about this? And then it turns into an argument and it spirals. Now I'm learning, my practice is to train. When I start to see that spiral, I'm like, okay, we're arguing. This is like, no matter what I say, they're not going to hear it. And so now I just maybe not say I love you. I like that, but just change the subject into something more positive. I think it's a great skill to have, and it just does save you so much time, because if you want to have a great life, knowing everybody, because of Twitter, social media, everybody's ready to argue. It helps to learn the skill of talking to the soul and kind of just detaching from these kind of conversations, not detaching from the person. We talked about this too. I think that's another sickness is if someone doesn't agree with me, I'm going to cut them out. This whole idea of cutting someone out. Right? You live in a village like 150 years ago, you couldn't cut people out. You had to learn, and even families used to be more close. Now you can cut out your family. So, and you just move to another state, you don't talk to your family anymore. So I don't like this cutting and they cut you out through like a text or they ghost you, as they call it. I always like to give people a chance, because someone might say something really hurtful to me, but okay, maybe there's some truth in what they said, which is good, but the hurt, it's just a moment. I'm not going to judge like, 40-year relationship over one thing they said.
Yeah. And Jason, another thing I learned too is sometimes people you don't like may be your teacher.
Right.
And then people, they support you when you're down, is your angel. And then friends are supposed to be. People love you regardless who you are, right?
I like that. That's a good distinction.
The teacher is always the one you don't really like.
They say in Buddha, like one of the Buddhist quotes is like, the one who can point out my hidden faults, that's considered my greatest spiritual friend.
Yes, your hidden fault, you hide it really deep. Exactly. And nothing can bring it up.
And sometimes a child, right, is just like just sees it. So that's great. I love the new passion and purpose you have now that you turned 60 and you're looking and feeling great. And but tell us, so speaking of that, tell us about this trip. I know you've already rode your bicycle. What is it called? A tandem? You did
the
Tibet.
tandem bicycle. Yes, we did it in the Western Sichuan area, which is Tibetan Plateau.
Right.
It's very high altitude,
Mhm.
and it was difficult. But this one is particularly difficult because it's within it's 1,000 kilometers. So it's
Mhm.
about 600 miles, but the climbing is
Wow.
about 10,000 feet a day. So
Wow.
in very short distance, and it's very challenging.
Mhm.
Yesterday we did a trial. We did
Wow.
65 miles and climbed 7,500. I
Oh.
was really hurting, my butt was hurting bad. And the challenge is we have to do it every day for 10 days.
That was Western China, you're saying, or the next trip?
No, this is the next
So
trip.
where is
In
this trip?
Switzerland. It's
Switzerland.
going to be in Switzerland. We're going to climb over all the mountains and make a loop. So I think when you have something like that at age 60, it is a little bit of scary. I have this really amazing husband, he's 51, so he's younger than me, but nevertheless, we are taking it as a challenge as a team. I think there's a good things about tandem bicycling with anybody, right? You really have to honor each other's ability, and you have to be putting together and honor that space. We're different, and then make it work together. So I think that's like dancing, right? You both have different
Oh,
style
yeah.
and different gift. So in order to enjoy it together, and you actually do get more together. Don't you agree? When you dance
Mhm.
with another person,
Oh, yeah.
you just have to honor that difference and be okay with the unknown person, the person probably you don't even know when you dance with this person.
Right.
And to really just honor that difference and enjoy the movement and music, it's really great. I think that's another thing I tell people. It's like a fear. If you just step beyond it, you're liberated. So for people, they never had any fear, they probably won't experience that, right?
Mm.
And Rumi has a poem and talk about the birds. And the little bird, the mom have to push it over the cliff. And you fall and you fall until you fly. And I can't remember the exact of the poem, but it's like you are pushed over to fall, and you're falling and you're falling, and suddenly you're giving wings. So it's really beautiful, the way about life. It's to just step a little bit further. Don't step too much,
Right.
just a little bit beyond yourself. You will discover that incredible freedom and the growth, that it's almost like a human revolution. It's supposed to happen, but we just need that push. And if you see the pandemic, the polarization, the suffering, I mean, we all have to honor that. We're suffering social inequality. We see this growing rich group that's getting smaller and smaller, and then the majority of people are suffering.
Right.
We have to see that as an opportunity for the push, and we have to let fall and go, and then we will be giving wings. And that's really how I feel at age 60. I feel I have made such a huge improvement that is beyond, and then that all caused by, trouble and stress, right? So that fall, that push, yes, is uncomfortable, but the worst thing you can do is hang in on something that's not working anymore and hang in there and miserable and bury yourself and,
No, that's so true. So again,
already.
it ties in exactly what you were saying with relationships. Like, get out of your comfort zone with other ideas, but also get out of your comfort zone and take an adventure or take a class. Just do one thing that you think is a little bit scary. I know exactly what you mean, because I do dancing. And I remember I did line dancing, I did Latin dancing, and every dance, so when you first start, you're the worst person there. And I love that feeling after a while. I'm like, oh, good. Now I have so much to learn, but it's like a challenge. And then in 6 months, I'm going to be able to do this, and you get addicted to that feeling of challenge. Whereas I think you're right. There's so many people who anything challenging is like, I don't want to do it. Yeah.
Right. And the problem about that behavior,
Right.
sometimes they don't even know they're doing it. They just find the most conservative view and take that as their own.
Right.
And that's really called the invisible prison. You know, we're building this invisible prison to our soul, So let it go of that and just be, and seeing that beyond yourself, that picture, because trust me, the majority of human beings are at the same place as you, not at a different place.
I love it. Yeah. Osho said, you know, do something dangerous every day. Like not really dangerous, but outside your comfort zone. Like don't try to just, you know, give up all of your humanity just for this safety, this idea of safety, which, you know, there's no such thing as safety. we're all
No. Yeah.
It's like
change is inevitable. So
Yeah.
this is something I tell people: change is inevitable. Progress is not guaranteed. So if change is inevitable and life is difficult already, no matter what you do, right, it's better off to change and seeking for progress and new advance and challenge in your heart. So I think that's just something I said, well, if we accept life is really freaking difficult, you know, just do something little extra, because you will find more freedom and more happiness.
Yeah, and purpose, right? Like a more
And
satisfaction than just, you know, chasing after something to give you more dopamine, just another. So, well, thank you so much. I mean, you're leaving soon. Do you have anything
in 2
else you
days.
want? 2 days. Okay. So you're busy getting ready. Switzerland, and it's a 10-day trip?
It's 18-day. We're giving ourselves a little extra to struggle and fail, maybe have to take a day off.
Wow.
But I want to invite everyone to, first of all, ask yourself in the past 3 years and now today, what you have learned, not as a bad thing, as a blessing and a lesson. The second thing, ask yourself, are you at a place you are happy? Not happy, just like being challenged, being excited. Are you losing that spark in your life?
Right.
And if so, what you would do about it? You know, if you are ready to do something about it, join our environmental systemic detox group, because this is something I can bring everyone together to have the most important conversation, not to be victims, not to say this is not working, this is not working, but really come down together, why people are sick and how can we help them together.
No, it's beautiful. You're bringing together the two most important things, I think: awareness of the toxins, which are directly affecting our health, and then the community. So if we can bring community together to address the most pressing issue, then we accomplish two things at the same time. So do you want to send me the link? I'll put the link for to join the group. Is it open to join?
Yes, it's called the Dr. Lu MD Systemic Detox Group. I'll send you the invitation.
Sure, I'll put it in there.
Thank you, Jason,
Thank you.
for being in my life during the pandemic. See?
Oh, it's been
one of the best things.
Totally, that is exactly right. Yeah, like, you know, it really gave you time to reflect and reach out to people that you normally wouldn't meet. And so, yes, thank you so much, Dr. Lu.
Thank you. Have a beautiful day, Jason.
You too.
Bye.